So I'm Pam Kelly, and we're really glad to have everybody here. Um, we've been working, as most of you know, in 5 schools in Franklin County, and they they go transverse across the entire county from Irving to Holly, and they follow the rivers. So they follow the Millers, then south on the Connecticut River, then the Deerfield River. And we are wondering if there are people who are interested in creating a pathway, a real serious pathway, by getting the agreement of towns en route to becoming pollinator protection zones. That's a process that's been underway in several towns already. So we already have all the resources like draft town meeting resolutions and people who have done it who can give us workshops. So that's one thought. And our team, which is from the Nolan Beeka Project, which focuses mostly on indigenous people, has developed this pollinator protection program. And it combines an indigenous point of view with a science point of view. Perhaps we got the idea mostly out of a book called Braiding Sweetgrass. If you haven't read it, it's really worth reading, by Robin Wall Kimmerer, who is herself a botanist, but who's also a Potawatomi, Native American, and combines the two. We have been working in 5 schools, and mostly the people from those schools will be able to tell you what has been happening in the schools. But just to suffice to say that Tom has been introducing the pollinator science with a PowerPoint, and has now, with the help of Travis and Dorothea, been turning that PowerPoint into a 3-part Vimeo, which is not done, but is really handy if you're if your students are isolating in place and if they have access to the internet. Then we have been bringing indigenous storytellers into the schools, especially the Bruchek family. And in the packet that you received, or if you didn't receive it because you weren't at the field thing today, we can send it by email, or by digitalized version of the indigenous storytellers, and that we developed a list actually for the Mohawk Trail School. But it's useful for anybody else, and it's also has links online so that people can check in on the indigenous storytelling scene through online sources and can forward that to their students. So we combine the two, and we're really just getting started. We're learning as much as we're offering. We're grateful for all of you all who are contributing enormously to what we know and what we're learning, and especially to Professor Gegear, who needs at this point no introduction, but who has been very informative in helping us, giving us his point of view on how the key species, the pollinators, the bees, fit into the whole ecosystem picture. So today, we're going to get an introduction to the curriculum that Dr. Gegear has developed and is developing for high school students, with the hope of also, perhaps with some of you helping, figuring out how to adapt it for younger students and middle schools. And I think that's enough. Dorothea or Tom or anybody, Dr. Gegear, you want to pitch in and say an additional thing? This would be a good time. I know Dorothea is now on the board of the Nolan Beeka Project and may have some things to add about the plans for the Nolan Beaker project for this summer, for example?
The Nolan Beaker project is hoping to have their Pecumtuck Homelands Festival, which takes place every year the first weekend in August, but we're not sure at all that we'll be able to get a permit to have an outdoor event. So, but we are hoping to have more River Stories events in the fall, in Amherst at the Hitchcock Center, but everything's kind of up in the air.
Oh. I would like to pull an order together for plants, hopefully by the fall, to start a little nursery at some school or in some property that is somewhat local to us all, of the plants that Dr. Gegear suggested on these sheets. So I'm very excited about them. I think it'd be wonderful to have them as resources and to start designing with them.
Okay.
So I'll probably send an email to you all asking what you might like and how you might want to participate. So be looking forward to that.
So, Dr. Gegear,
Yes.
we're very interested to hear more about the curriculum and what but you may have other things that you wanted to add before we delve in with that, but we want to make sure we have time for the curriculum.
Yeah, I think that's the main focus. And again, I'm going to be more aware of the time than I was yesterday and try to move through, just hit some key points and then get people into groups to talk about things. And then maybe if we have time at the end, I'll talk more about the app and walk through. If people had videos, if you wanted to send me those videos through email, I can pull them up and screen share. We can walk through and take a look at some videos together, and I have some as well. So we could do that near the end after the breakout groups. That sounds good to everybody. Since you're all muted, I guess we'll do it that way, since you have no say. Anyway, okay. So screen share. Okay, so what I want to do today, as was mentioned, is we want to, we've talked a lot. I've tried to give you background content to come at things from a lot of different angles. If we just wanted to focus on the citizen science part and the app, we'll talk a bit about that. But I wanted to give you a sense of what we're doing at the high school level and what we have been doing over the past few years. And so what we're doing, the app itself allows you to collect data, but we have a whole system that allows you to look at data, test hypotheses. So the data is put into the system, and then you can look at all of our data in the database. We also have museum specimens in the database, so you can test hypotheses and look at relationships. So if you want to say, how has bumblebee diversity changed? You can look at data from before 2000 and after 2000, and it's displayed in a good way, so you could learn about graphing to test the hypothesis as a group, or just use it to learn how to interpret a graph, or at the high school level, they're doing a lot of different things. In addition, we have models. So the modeling part of this project is we have online, again, you can go through simulations to look at the connection between bees and hawks. So you can learn about those connections I talked about. So you can change bees numbers or plant numbers and look at how it makes hawks go extinct, to help to visualize these things. And they're different, the models set up different ways to illustrate different points, and there's text to go along with them. So I want to show you what's available very briefly, and you can go into it in more detail if you think it's of interest, but I just want to let you know that the app itself and the data collection is only part of it. You become the citizen scientist in terms of collection, but it's also, you can analyze the data yourself. So the project that I'm talking about is called the BioCS Bridge Project, and it's an NSF-funded project that I'm doing along with Elizabeth Ryder, who's our modeler. Carolina Ruiz is our computer science faculty. Liz Ryder's faculty as well. both at WPI, and Sherry Weaver is our STEM, is from the STEM Education Center at WPI. And was at WPI, but now I'm at Dartmouth, and I sort of cover the biology and ecology and things like that. But I've familiar with modeling and computer science, so I try to bring things together the best that I can, and have for the Beecology project, and also for this one. So the BioCS Bridge project, again, the grant that we got was through what's called STEM plus C. So not only integrating STEM disciplines, but also bringing in computer science and computational thinking. So I wanted to talk a bit about our approach and how we set up the curriculum design, and I think it's a pretty good template so far. We're doing research on the process, and it seems to be working out quite well. And I feel strongly that this could be brought to middle and high school in the same way, to develop curriculum in the same way that's really effective and helps to meet the next generation science standards and also computer science. And I feel that even the arts could be brought into this as well. And we can talk more about that later. So just to give you an overview, first of all, why do we need an integrated curriculum? And then I want to spend most of my time talking about the project, and then I want to show you some of the curriculum that we've developed so far. It's, as I said yesterday, it's at the stage where we've got it close to being finished, but then we have to try to get it to people, to make it accessible to teachers everywhere that might be interested in. So we're working on ways to set up dissemination through the website itself, the BioCS Bridge website, which I'll show you briefly. So why is it that we're doing this? I mean, I think everybody should be familiar with the changes, the next generation science standards that have come in. So here I've got a quote from the Mass Science, Technology, and Engineering curriculum framework, that's to develop scientifically and technologically literate citizens who can solve complex, multidisciplinary real-world problems and have real-world applications, and then apply analytical reasoning. So this is where you read through this, it's not just about biology anymore. It's really trying to integrate the STEM disciplines and bring in this analytical reasoning, and computational thinking is a form of analytical reasoning. So here we've got on the scientific side, hypothesis testing, experimental design, that type of thing, core content. But then we've got, data interpretation, modeling and simulation, and systems approaches on the computational thinking side of that. And if we look at some of and this is just looking at the high school standards and the science and engineering practices, you can see develop and use models is you see that repeatedly. Analyze and interpret data, use computational thinking, analyze data sets, use mathematical representations, models. So that you see models and the computational thinking coming in through these new standards. And this trickles, this is high school, but I've looked at the standards, K through 8 standards, and versions of this are included for each of the core, each of the standards in the framework within life sciences, for example. So to give you, here's one example. So here's a standard, and you can see it says use mathematical representations. Here's another one, create models and simulations to help formulate, test, and refine hypotheses. So this is from the computer science side of things. And so to do this, you need an integrated curriculum. Now, the problem is, or the challenge is, I guess, not a problem, is that in order to pull this off, you really need to have a broad base. You need to have good training on both the technology side, the computational thinking, the computer science side, and also biology. And typically these things it's been math and computer science and then biology. And you need to integrate in an effective way and get students to think about problems and approach them in different ways. You really need to have both sides. And so what we're trying to do is to help teachers to bring those together. And we've developed something that allows, if you're an expert in both, great, we've got something for you. If you've never, if you haven't done much with computers, we also have something for you. So you can integrate and bridge these two things together to meet these next generation science standards effectively So it covers not just a range of teacher backgrounds, but also a range of students. So those that are whizzes at computers, there's something for them, and those that need tutorials, and we've got a whole wide range of things that I'll talk about. You can check out more if you wanted to later. So here, this is the bridge that I'm talking about is pulling together the concepts from biology and computer science. So you can see, again, these different things, programming, for example, and adaptation or keystone species. How do those two things fit together where our curriculum brings them together? That's the goal. So the project itself, this is giving you a sense, a diagram. So we've got in our process where we want to have a transdisciplinary team where we have what's called both horizontal and vertical integration. And this means that we include not just the high school students in the process, but also high school students as well. So we've got faculty and students in high school, and university faculty and students and graduate students all working together. We also have people that are experts in biology and computer science working together. And this presents challenges in itself in that people in computer science aren't familiar with a lot of the terminology and concepts that we use in biology, and the opposite is true as well. So we spent a lot of time trying to understand what exactly is computational thinking, because it means different things to different people, but just to get on the same page and use the same language. And I think that was the biggest hurdle that we had. And once we did, we really, things moved forward quickly in terms of the curriculum development. And I feel that, the Beecology project itself brought this together. The idea of pollinators, and it's a fairly straightforward concept. I ramp up the complexity, I know, but and information. But they really, once we started to see each other's point of view and language and the way they approach things, it was an eye opener. And I think that people in the project learned a lot and developed a lot. Certainly learned to think in a more interdisciplinary way just through the process of creating the curriculum. So the members that we have, so we have teacher leaders. We're calling them teacher leaders, and those are the core teachers that we worked with to develop the curriculum in the first place. And then this past year, we brought in teacher integrators that took the curriculum and brought it into the classroom, and then we met as a large group to refine the curriculum. So we've got a couple of teachers from Nipmuc High School and a couple from Worcester Tech. Those are our teacher leaders, one computer science, one biology. And now we have a bunch of teachers from six high schools in Massachusetts. And they cover a wide range. We did this on purpose. So we've got urban, suburban, college prep, and technical schools. And then we have a bunch of undergraduates, a lot of undergraduates actually, and graduate students and high school students that have been working with the project as well. And again, they come from biology and computer science. So what our approach is then is what we're trying to do is, and this is where the Beecology and what we've done today comes in, we're trying to engage the students in the scientific practice. It's really a hands-on approach where we want them to get their hands dirty when it comes to the biological data, so they can collect it themselves, they can analyze it themselves, or look at the data and see what the data actually mean themselves. That's where the app comes in. And the other tools we have allows them to look at the data that everybody's collected, or to select data on a larger scale. So if I wanted to look at Franklin County data, it's very easy for us to just look at Franklin County historical data, Franklin County current data, compare to schools, or pool the school data together, and then use the tools to look at relationships, patterns between plants and bumblebee species and different things. This part, I think, moving forward is more on the computer science side of things. But again, computer science means many things. And at the high school level, it's going to mean something different than middle and elementary school. But elements of the computer science side certainly can be brought in. All of the software we have is what's called modular, which means that there are these little self-contained units that you can pull out and not affect the integrity of the entire curriculum. You can change modules. the way that the computer technology, the technology is developed is very modular, so that it's easy to see. So this section does this, for example, and I'll get to this a bit more later. And then if you're thinking back to the framework, the idea was that they need to address a complex biological problem, and that is the degradation of these pollination systems that I've talking about. So the plants and the animals are both declining in parallel, and it has important implications. So that is the complex biological problem that we're focused on. Now, the way that things are set up, you could expand and use the technology and use everything and adapt it to another system if you're interested. And again, this we don't have that ready, but that's certainly something that you can do. But this plug and play idea is that we have the app fully functional, right? You used it today, or may use it later today, but it's fully functional. Everything we have is fully functional, but we can give you bits of it and build it so that it is fully functional. That's what we mean by a modular system. And so this is just covering what I just said. Okay, so the example I don't need to go over. You know what the example is, pollinator decline. Originally, I was going to go over this before I covered the content yesterday, and now I'm glad that I didn't. I was going to just give you a brief summary of the key issues. But we get to the example on pollinator decline, and I mentioned we lack the data. So this is a citizen science project. This is the data that are collected by the students are very important for us to understand what's going on when it comes to pollinator decline and its consequences. In particular, we're starting with bumblebees, and that's where the Beecology project comes in. And so the students are participating in a community effort to try to figure out what's going on and also to help to solve the problem. And as I mentioned, the design problem from the computer science side is, well, so I go to the computer scientist and say, look, I need to be able to collect data and store data and organize data quickly because I can't enter it into Excel myself. And they say, okay, that's our design problem. And then they created a solution. They designed tools that could rapidly collect, store, and analyze and visualize all the data that I'm collecting from the biology side. And so this is the bridge, right? We're bridging together. We've got the problem from biology, we've got the solution from the computer science side, and so how do those two fit together? And you can look at things from strictly the biology side or strictly the computer science side, but there's always a little bit of the other side that's in the curriculum, and that's where the bridge comes in. So the tools that we have, all right, and at this point I'm gonna show you the overview, and I'm gonna jump to the tools very quickly just to show you what we have and where it is. We've got the Beecology website. On the Beecology website, we have the web app, which you're familiar with, but we also have other information, some background information. We've got these cool visualization tools where we can look at the data, and we've just updated those. And then we have these simulations. So the data we collect from the app and other places that I bring in through my own research or through museum specimens, we have a huge database. And we're able to pull things from the database so people can test hypotheses and do experiments, or they're just generally interested about what's going on with bees and plants and their relationship. Okay, so there we go. So the Beecology webpage, I think we've all visited the webpage so far. It looks a bit different when you're on a laptop than when you're on a phone. So we've got these three tabs down the sides. We've got visualize and simulate. So here's the collection. Here are the two things. This is basically getting the data into the system, and this is using the data. The visualization, so it's not live quite yet, but okay. So the data analysis, when you click visualization, you'll soon be able to link this, but just to give you an idea of what you can do. So in the data selection tab, you can go through and you can filter. You can either get all the data, or you can pick certain species, or, you know, here are all of the variables that are in the app. And you can select a subset of the data, or you could, if you hit filter, you can select all the data. You can also filter by location. So if you check this box, you can, it'll show you a map of Massachusetts, and you can move the, actually, let's do this here. So filter by location. If I wanted to just look at data from west of 91 in Massachusetts, we can move the bar, or move the shading, and then we hit filter, and it will just pull the data, all the data from this area. So it's a really, really cool feature to get the data, and you could download it into Excel and do different things. And again, we're working on curriculum and activities that walk you through that and do that for you. But just to show you some of the visualization tools that we have. So I'm downloading all the data. This is giving you a summary. So summary statistics of, you know, male, female, different things. You can see that Bombus impatiens is very common. It overwhelms any other species in terms of number in the database. But now if we wanted to analyze the data set, we can go to these really cool visualization tools. So here, if we look at diversity heat map, this is, again, all of these data. If you enter data today, your data are going to show up in this visualization right now. And so you can go and look to see, once you enter the data, you can see your data point come up on the screen, or all the data for a particular school. If you have a habitat, you could focus in to see what people have found on different years. There's a wide variety of things you can do. So this is showing you a heat map of species diversity. So if we look at just the number of species, so you can, if you're learning about Shannon's index and these other things, you can use that. But high diversity is in red, and you can see that there's some high diversity up in Greenfield area over here. So if we click, if we go up top here, you can see that this is for all of the data that we have in the database up to 2020. It's showing us, and all of the months, April through November, when bumblebees are active, it's showing us what we see. And you can see here's Turnarius, Perplexus in this area, Fervidus and Bimaculatus. If we go farther west, we see that we now add Curricula to the mix. And so this is for all years. And if we wanted to say, okay, well, let's see what's happening more recently, we can go post 2000, and you see that the map changes. And if we now click on the same, we see some differences. Now we have Bombus borealis that we didn't have before. We still have Curricula, and everything's color coded. So this is one way that you can look at the data. What might be of interest with the gardening project is you can look at floral networks. So this is something new, and I think this is the coolest thing. So again, it's showing you years. We've started collecting plant data from 2013 when we started the project, which actually I think closer to 2015, and those various months. But it's showing you the connections between the bumblebees and the different plants. So if I wanted to see what is Bombus bimaculatus visiting, we can look at what it's visiting, and we can look at the length of the bar, the width of the bar, to see what it's preferring. We could also, let's say we wanted to look at nectar and let's say in terms of pollen collection, we can see that Bombus impatiens is collecting pollen from these three species over these months. So you can play around with the years, with the months. So let's say we wanted to know what's really good in the spring. I have to refresh, I think, here. All right, if we wanted to know what's in the spring, we could get this, and I'm not sure, I've obviously hit something wrong. You would see for those months, what are the bees visiting, and you can use that to help to construct the garden and compare it against my list, which is based on more formal research. The last thing I wanted to point out on the Beecology page was the modeling, which is more game-like, so it might be more, we did that on purpose because it's more appealing, likely more appealing to the students. So it's talking about the simulation, setting things up. When we want to explore the simulations, we can see here we've got what's called Beecology. So we've got different types of models. But this one simulates a very simple ecosystem. It tells you, so here we've got the bumblebees, flowers, seeds, and mice. It sets up what the model's about. And then if you click on the simulation and you hit play so you can read about it, it shows you the simulation working. So we've got these hawk-like things, and we've got the things running around. We've got the bees pollinating. So it's showing you what's going on here. And then there's also output, what's going on in the scenario. And you can watch how if you change the bee numbers with different scenarios, so this is scenario 1, low number of bees, what happens to the hawks? And you can watch them drop as the number of bees goes down, and talk about why is that? Why are we seeing fewer hawks? How are bees and hawks related? Or if you change the plant, you're going to see hawks going down. Why is that? Well, it's because there aren't enough seeds for the mice to eat. You can really see those ecological connections that I was talking about yesterday. Okay, the other flip side to this in terms of curriculum development is we've got the, I want to hide this, hide video panel. I want to look at the BioCS bridge. So this is a part of the curriculum. So notice the BioCS bridge. So this is our curriculum. Oh, there's Liz. Let me shut this down. There's Liz Ryder, one of the team members, emailing me about something related to the project. So here you notice it mirrors. So learn, why is our bridge needed, explore, and then join us. So this is old. This is going to be changed in the curriculum. So here's where you'll be able to access our curriculum in the future. But notice how it mirrors the Beecology page. Well, this is a part of the computer science side, how you can take the element in one context and very quickly transport it into another context. So it's showing you that modularity of the curriculum that we have. Okay, so from there, I think to give you an idea of where we are right now and some ideas for when you get into your groups, here's what we have so far. So this is our index for units for our curriculum. So we've got our bio curriculum and lesson plans. So we'll take a look at that. And so you see how we have our 4 units. So the one I think we'll be interested in is looking at the natural history of bumblebees and lesson plans. So we want to learn about the bumblebees before we go into the field. So if we click on this unit, we have all of our lessons, 6 lessons related to that unit. And so one of the first things they start off with, and you might be interested in this, there's a video called The Secret World of Bees that they show the students first. Then they learn a little bit about bumblebees. So Bumblebee 101, click on that. You can see we have our lesson plan set up. Here are the standards. So this is a more formal way of, or this is our formal way of presenting the curriculum. Again, Sherry Weaver, our STEM education person, was working on this. But it gives you everything you need: key vocabulary, assessment, and then also activities. So Bumblebees 101, there's the field observation. So this is where we bring in the going outside and looking at bees, taking the videos. So that's one of the activities. And if we click on that, it takes us to the teacher document, which is what you can do, outdoor and indoor options, different things that you can do. So we've got quite a bit of content right now. And as I said, we're in the phase where we're transitioning, but certainly as you talk about ideas, I have some things that we've tried at the high school level that work that I think could be adapted for middle and elementary school. And I certainly have a lot of ideas for different things. And I think when we get into the groups, talking about what you think might work and sharing it with others, and we can just get the process going. How do you think you could use either the app or the other tools, and how you're going to use your habitat in the classroom? I have a ton of ideas for hypothesis testing. If you want to learn about pollination, you can bag some flowers and not others to show the importance of a pollinator. So you do that when they're in bloom, and then you wait till the fall, and you can look at how many seeds are produced. And so you can you can transition the years, right? You can have one activity in the spring and one activity in the fall. And I know that that would be different classes. Or if you work with teachers, you can have students follow up on their experiments from the preceding spring in the next grade, different things like that. Okay. So I think, you know, I just continue to go on to talk more about this idea of choose your own adventure. What does that mean? And I think, you know, it's at this point, we're just going to be using the tools. But if you are interested in learning about modeling, how to develop a basic model and bringing that into your classroom, the NetLogo model is very straightforward. It's like a pieces of puzzle. The code is like pieces of puzzle that you put together. I certainly can bring Liz Ryder into the mix, and she'd be happy to work with you to try to bring that into, along with me, to bring that into the classroom. But this shows you that you can go from just using the tools to what we call hacker modules, where you would actually, for advanced students, you'd actually design their own computational tools. And based on what we've done this year in the high schools, this fit very well. That it doesn't, you have a wide range of students with different backgrounds, especially when it comes to computer science. We had something for everyone. Every one of them was able to complete the activity and was challenged with the activity. So I think this is one of the flexibility that our curriculum has is quite impressive, I think. And I feel that, again, that flexibility could be brought to middle and elementary school. Okay. I think going through things, it's just more examples, and I'd much rather spend the time in groups talking about what we can do, and also, you know, talking about the app and going through the app if we need to with time. So with that, I will stop screen sharing. I can take questions if you want now, or we can wait. It's up to you before we get into the groups. I'll answer questions now for a couple of minutes while the groups are being formed. Yes, Dan, you're muted.
Yes, one question, I have a curriculum question and a Beecology question.
Yes.
The curriculum question is, when you're talking about the computer science part of this, are you talking about actual coding in a programming language or something like building an Excel spreadsheet formula?
We have all of it. So we can do coding. So building models in StarLogo and NetLogo is the language that we're using. But we have HTML, you know, we go all of computer science, we have many different languages covered in the curriculum from the computer science side.
And
yes.
And the second one is, if you're using a camera that does not have GPS, how closely do you have to log your location? Can you say, this is in the town of Conway, or do you need to have coordinates or a street address?
So in the app, you can move the map around. So the map, you can go to the map. I think you can even enter, at this point, you can enter an address and it will pop up on the map, and you just click OK, and it will use that address in app. So that's built in for that reason. Does that answer your question? Yeah, okay, good. Okay, so anybody else have, just unmute yourself and let me see everybody. Or,
Yeah.
What I would like is, you know, a rough idea following the lesson plan that I showed you, and, you know, you have a general sense of the standard that you're trying to address, to come up with an activity or a general way that you think you're going to do things, and talk about an activity that you could do and write it down. And then I think when we come back together, if there's a spokesperson from each group, that you can talk about the activities, because I do think that the activities are, you know, you can use the activities. It's not grade specific. You can adjust it, the activity. It's the novelty of the activity and how, you know, if you think it would engage the students, that's important, not necessarily what you're doing. So try to focus on that, and also think about the variability that you're going to see, or that you do see in your class, and also variability at the level of teachers. That, you know, if everybody has access to a garden outside and it's going to work great, but let's say you don't, or just think about those different layers that I was talking about, and trying to have something that would have the flexibility to be of interest or to be carried out by a broad range of teachers or students. I think that would be good.
Could I suggest that you do a quick go round and each person say something that they thought had engaged their students, either with the Nolan Beaker project or with a different project. It'll have to be brief if we only have like a half an hour. But
So,
then
okay.
so you'll get some sense of people's experience already, and something that seemed engaging already.
Okay, so I'm sorry, I didn't realize that the pollinator idea had already been brought into the classroom and then going out to the habitat. So
We've already, it's in at least 5 schools, but every school has experience with projects. Some
okay,
Coleraine got an award for its fabulous projects with fish when they had a big fish die-off in Coleraine, and the school entered the fray and created a project.
okay, so maybe it would be better if one of the teachers would volunteer to organize this discussion, because I'm not familiar with what's been done and where the teachers, wherever you want to take this, I'm willing to go. So I'm not sure I should be steering the ship at this point, or maybe Pam, you could steer the ship a little bit more.
No,
I'll put my 2 cents in.
You're doing fine, but I just think that it might be good because we're all mixed up at the same grade level, but different schools, that people's experience in those different schools will be informative for all of the other schools.
Yeah, okay.
And so that might be a good short place to start, like 10 minutes. You've got about 4 people in your group, like 2 or 3 minutes each. Go around your name and some experience you've had in the school that seems engaging and in this vein.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And I was thinking the same thing. I obviously didn't say it or communicate it that way. I think of this as a brainstorming session where you take your experience and share with others and make a list of things that you think either have worked for you or you think may work or would want to try.
Okay.
But certainly, yes, in a group, especially if you don't know somebody, introduce yourselves and talk about your experiences. And then, so you could do that the first 10 minutes and then or 15, and then the last, you would try to make a list of potential activities that we can talk about as a group. And then we'll come up with a list at the end when we all come together. Does that sound okay, Pam?
Yes, that sounds fine. And the only one question that might not come up because you're focused so much on your own school is there something that we should collaborate with through the whole county? When you are all in the same county.
Yeah. Are you directing that question at me, or?
I'm directing the question. If it seems plausible in your small groups.
Okay.
In other words, we could do a pollinator protection pathway through the whole county where we connect with each other. So that sounds like an ambitious goal for a short period of time, but
How much time do you want to?
I think a half hour is reasonable to hear experience and brainstorm. And then if we need to break out again, we'll meet after a half hour and then we'll just see where we're going to go from there.